Hello and welcome. In this episode, you will discover how to launch your book and get clients in 30 days or less, how to avoid giving away too much of your secret sauce in your book, why clients who read your book are more eager, more qualified, and ready to buy, and how to get 5 to 15 qualified high-ticket prospects a week with zero ad spend. That's a big promise. And with my friend Steve Gorton, we're going to talk about that. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, Mustafa. Great to be here.
Great to see you, my friend. I look forward to this. Today, we're talking about how to go from a best kept secret to the one who wrote that book in 30 days. Let me do the proper introduction to my friend Steve. I'm going to dive into a very interesting conversation. Gang, if you are looking for ways to market your business, establish yourself as an expert, be the go-to person in your industry, stick around, save the link, send the link to a friend, share this with them. This is going to be valuable information. And make sure to like and subscribe to the show before you forget and before you leave, so that you keep getting all of our amazing guests and the following episodes. Now, Steve Gorton is a two-time entrepreneur, best-selling author, marketing strategist, consultant, and speaker. He has interviewed 183 of the top entrepreneurs in the world as the host of the Unstoppable CEO podcast, and his books have helped thousands of business owners attract better clients and get paid more. And as the founder of Unstoppable CEO Press, he has helped dozens of entrepreneurs write a book that lands clients, premium fees, and speaking opportunities. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, I'm really excited to be here.
Great to see you. Where about are you?
I'm in Florida, in a town called Tallahassee, state capital.
And then what are you guys experiencing right now? Is it summer, winter, spring? What's it
Well,
like?
it's technically winter, but we don't have like really
Much of
crazy
winter, hey?
winter. Yeah, I think it's currently 70 degrees, so I can't
I wish I
complain.
lived there. You got to try up here in Calgary, Alberta. It's always winter in Canada.
I don't think I'd survive.
Yeah. It's been pretty nice this year, though. With January, this is probably the nicest January I've seen in the past 22 or 23 years.
Wow.
Like temperatures are around 0 degrees Celsius, so above freezing or just around freezing, which is warm for this time of year. So, and we've been enjoying it. And gang, by the way, this is Steve's mug. I've been a guest on his show, the Unstoppable CEO podcast. It is honestly my favorite coffee mug. I literally drink my coffee in this every single day. So it's worth it, speaking of marketing, to get a mug, slap your name on it, and send it to your clients or prospects and have them carry it with you and advertise your name all year round on their podcast. How good is that?
That's right. That's awesome.
Fantastic. So let's dive into it. Steve, what is your story?
Well, so I've built two businesses and been at this probably more years than I want to admit. But I got really lucky out of school. I graduated from college with a technical degree. Went to work for an engineering consulting firm out of school, and after I'd been there for about 4 years, the founder asked me to take over as CEO, and I had kind of risen up and taken some other roles along the way, and that was a really big change, kind of turning point for me. Running a business for the first time, I was 28 years old, had no idea what I was doing, and got a really great opportunity to learn. And so we grew that business to about 3.1 million in revenue, and then I decided I wanted to go out and help other professionals grow their business. I was really much more interested in the sales and marketing side of that business, and so in 2010 I launched our current business, and it's taken a number of different iterations. We started off just consulting with professionals and helping them get clients, and we've used a few different marketing tactics along the way, but the one that we've kept coming back to is the idea of writing a book, because we haven't found anything that works better. And I wrote my first book in 2014, and used that book really to go from 1.5 person local marketing consulting firm to a firm that was known around the world. In fact, when we launched that book, I had just 15 partners. So I had a podcast way back before podcasting was cool. And I interviewed for a year. I interviewed people like this. And I went back to the 50 people that I've interviewed, and only 15 of them were willing to help me promote that first book. But those 15 people sent 5,268 people new leads that had purchased the book in the first week that we'd launched it, and it changed my business overnight. And so since then we've been perfecting our process for writing books and doing that in a really short time. So we help our clients now write a book in about 90 days.
Oh, that is amazing. And love what you've done. And I think what you're doing is really valuable with writing books and helping people establish it themselves is probably one of the fastest way, if not the fastest way to be the expert and the guy. So I know you already touched on it, but what do you do these days and who do you serve?
So we help experts write books. We work with really anyone that's selling their expertise, and usually that means they're in some type of a service business. But probably the three main markets we serve are attorneys, financial advisors, and consultants.
Attorneys, financial advisors, and consultants.
Yes.
Fantastic. So why should people or experts, consultants, and attorneys and other people write a book?
So, the biggest problem that I think most professionals have is not that they aren't good at what they do, not that they don't have tremendous expertise. Most of the time, they're struggling on what we call the revenue roller coaster, where they're up some months and got plenty of work and not doing any marketing because they're fulfilling all the work. Then they turn right around and realize, oh, these projects are done, the engagements are over, and nothing's in the pipeline, and they just kind of ride that all the time. And the reason that they do that is they don't have any consistent way to create a flow of opportunity. And so most of these businesses are just struggling because they don't have enough deal flow coming at them. And, and really that's the thing that we're looking to attack when we help them write a book.
And then, so how does the book help them get leads and customers?
So what we've discovered is that a book is kind of like throwing gasoline on any type of marketing that you're going to do. It's going to help multiply the results that you're getting. And so we've got 9 different strategies that we use with clients in helping them attract leads with a book. And we want to match the right strategy to the client. But probably 80% of our clients use the referral strategy that I wrote about back in 2014 in my first book, Unstoppable Referrals. And we use the book as a kind of a lever to create referrals. And so the way that would it be okay if I kind of role play with you for a minute and we walk through
100%.
that?
Yeah.
So the way that we would do that is we would, I might come to you and say, hey, Mustafa, I just wrote a brand new book. It's called The $1 Million Book. And it's all about, how to get new clients in a really unique way and position yourself as an expert. And I'm on a mission to really transform the way that businesses get clients by using a book. And I want to get this into the hands of as many people as I can, as fast as I can. I would love to have your help. What do you say?
Yeah, be happy to.
Yeah, and that's what everybody says. If you're going to give me the opportunity to give away some books to people that I know, and most business owners are doing a really terrible job of of giving value to their network. So they're looking for ways to be able to gift something to their network and have it be valuable and be seen as somebody who's kind of in the know. So it's very easy to get people to say yes to that. And it's a very low risk way for them to introduce you. Now, the advantage you get is that now you're getting introduced not as somebody who's going to sell something. You're not showing up as a salesperson, but you're being introduced as the one who wrote the book, as a preeminent expert. Much more powerful way to sell. And so that's one of the ways that we would use it in referrals. And so what our clients find is that on average, they get about 5 referrals every time they have that conversation.
Okay. And so then what happens is you would give the books away to someone you know. Let's say you give your books to me, right?
Mhm.
The $1 Million book, right? And then I would give it away to my audience, to my people, as a way to provide value. And
Mhm.
through that process, you get referrals. Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it might work on a really small scale. So if I'm working one-on-one with you and maybe we're sitting in my office or we're on Zoom and I say, hey, Mustafa, if you'd be willing to share, what do you say we sit down and brainstorm who in your network might be a really great fit, who would really benefit from getting a copy of the book? Most people will say yes to that. And now you're able to kind of guide the conversation about who they're referring to you. And you're not leaving it up to them to just kind of go pull people out of the air. Because I don't know about you. Have you ever had one of those referrals where, the client really meant well, they wanted to really help you, and they sent somebody who was just a complete wrong fit? You ever had that
Absolutely.
happen? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, this is a way to prevent that because you're actually going to brainstorm with them. You're going to guide them through as they look through their contact list, and they're going to say, "Oh, Bob Smith would be really great." And you say, "Tell me about Bob," and you're able to kind of curate through their contacts. So that's how to do it on a small scale. But you can
So then
also
you would, I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say you can also do it on a really large scale. And we've had partners in some of the mastermind groups that you and I have been in together before, who would share an electronic copy of my book, and they'd send us 300 or 400 leads in a shot.
Interesting. And so you would ask your partner to come up with a list of people, and then you go through it together?
Yeah, we'll go. Well, actually, what we ask them to do is, hey, if you're open to brainstorming, then let's sit down together where you're able to look at your contact list. Most people have it on their phone, so if you're sitting at an in-person meeting, say, hey, just pull up your phone, let's browse through and let's find 4 or 5 or 6 people that would be a great fit, and they'll go do that. And what we find is that because the book is seen as something that they're giving as a gift, they're excited to do it. When they send them out and people get it, very few people are ever offended by receiving a gift. Very
Yeah.
different than, go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead. I'm
I was
sorry, I
just
keep
going to say,
cutting you off.
yeah, it's fine. It's very different than if you're trying to introduce someone, to a business contact, and they sense that there's going to be some selling involved. There's all of a sudden there's tension and there's resistance to it. You're given a gift of a book. There's none of that.
Fair enough. Do you ever get resistance towards that, going through someone's contacts and saying, "Oh, no, no, I don't want to do that"?
Very rarely, because they're doing it. You know, I never sit and take over their phone. If they're willing to do it, if they say yes to the idea, then you just simply tell them, the best way I found to do this is pull up your contact list. That way, you're not trying to rack your brain and struggle to do this. Just see who's in your network. You've already got them right there on your phone.
Love it. Love it. So, Steve, what should go in a book that is designed to attract clients?
So, great question. Really, the key thing that you want to put into a book that's going to attract great clients to you um, is to first focus on the problem that your clients face. And this is, I'll be honest, when we work with an expert, the very first thing that they want to do most of the time is prove that they're an expert by listing all of the qualifications that they have, and nobody cares.
Exactly.
If you've written a book, they assume that you're a smart person and that you're qualified. And so you need to start where the prospect is. Start with the problem that they have, the thing that's keeping them up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and focus there, and you'll hook them right at the beginning of the book. So that's really the first thing that you want to share.
Okay. What else?
So the next really important piece is to walk them through your unique process. And I like to think of this as I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy lands in Oz, and she wants to get home, and she has to get to the city of Oz to do that. And she's told to follow the yellow brick road. And the idea of your unique mechanism, this is sort of the yellow brick road that connects the problem that your ideal client is facing, and that kind of ideal outcome, that City of Oz experience that's at the end of the road, that bigger, better future that you're going to create for them. So you want to lay out for them, well, this is, how people in your situation can find a solution, and you lay out step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and walk them through your solution.
Love it. So we first talk about the problem, talking about it's like connecting with them where they're at and what they're experiencing, then sharing your unique process, or some people call it your framework. Here's what we do to fix this. What's next?
So the last piece of the book really should be focused on the client's future. So if you think about this as a transformation story, we start with what they're struggling with. We take them through a transformation in the middle. And at the end, we want to really paint a very clear picture about what life will be like for them once they've solved that problem. What are all the new opportunities that open up? How much more peace and peace of mind will they have? And really paint that picture and make it really clear and compelling and exciting for them.
Fantastic. Love it. Love it. Is there anything else that goes in the book, or is that it?
Well, that's the kind of the high level structure. There's a lot kind of, of nuance in there, but that's the key structure that you want to put in your book.
Fantastic. So the problem, the framework, and the future.
Yes.
Those are the 3 main things that you got to cover. So I know there are 2 things that I've heard about your expertise in giving it away. One is I've heard people say, just give away everything and people will still come. Some people say, don't give away your secret sauce. What's your take on it? How do you deal with that?
So I get asked that question all the time. And, for the clients that we work with, we're generally writing a shorter book that's designed to be consumed. And that's important in thinking through how much should we give away. So if we're writing a book that's 100 to 150 pages, and you're a true expert at what you do, I guarantee you we can't capture all of your secret sauce, all of your expertise in 100 to 150 pages.
You can, or
you can't. You're more of an expert than that. We could never tell them how to do everything that you do, all of the things that you're unconsciously competent at. We could never teach someone that in 150 pages. We probably couldn't teach it to them in 1,000 pages. If you've been, working at your chosen profession for decades. And so I don't see that as a big concern. But what you do want to reveal is enough about your process so that a sophisticated buyer can look at it and go, oh, okay, this is somebody I can trust because I see that they've thought through solving my problem well enough that they've got a system for
it. They have a system. Love it. And I think by going through your three-step framework there, once you do that, it does show that you do know what you're talking about. You do have a framework. You could talk from here's where you are. Here's what we could do for you. And here's what the future looks like. That's like establishing your expertise there, which is simple. Hence the name of our show, the Simple Marketing Show. Interesting. What are some mistakes that people make with writing books?
The biggest mistake is writing the wrong kind of book. So we've talked a little bit about the ideal structure. We call that kind of a transformational story. But we had a client come to us about 5 years ago, and he had written a book already, but he'd been trying to market it for a couple of years. And he was just incredibly frustrated because it wasn't producing any results for him. And I took that book and I started looking at it and reading it and studying it. And the interesting thing about this book is it had won 2 literary awards in his industry. So it was a legitimately good book. It was well written. I mean, thought leadership all the way. And his target audience were, he was trying to sell consulting into corporate executives, very, very high level corporate executives, busy executives. And his book laid out his whole system. I mean, every last detail. It was totally thorough, totally well written, and it was. I think it's probably one of his book was in the area of sales. Probably one of the best sales books I've ever written or ever read. And yet it still wasn't working. And the reason it wasn't working is that he had written a textbook. He laid out every single step, everything that needed to be done in the process. And really what his ideal client was looking for was, what's the transformation? How am I going to get from here to there? They weren't going to implement it. They weren't going to do it themselves. And they didn't certainly have time because of their role to read a 360 plus page book. So it was a very long book, very detailed, very dense. That's probably the biggest mistake that people make, and particularly experts. If you've got all this expertise, the thing you think you need to do is put everything out there, have it all perfectly researched, have it all referenced, and leave no stone unturned. And that usually is just going to put a prospect to sleep.
Interesting. So you don't want to write a textbook. You just want to show it. Is it recommended to use stories to demonstrate the possibilities? Is there a limit? Could we do too much or too many stories, or what's your take on that?
So I think you probably can have too many stories, but I haven't found yet a business that has collected more stories than would kind of be across that line. Yeah, I mean, most businesses do a really terrible job at collecting stories and case studies and testimonials. One of the things we really look to do is, with each chapter, try and pair a client story with that chapter to illustrate the point. Because if we can put kind of overwhelming proof inside the book where we're showing the reader, who is a future ideal client for you, that here's a series of other people who had the same problem that they've got. They went through your unique process, and out the other side, they're now living that bigger, better future. They're an example of that transformation. It's going to really get the energy created in the mind of that reader to want to move forward and reach out and contact you.
Fantastic. So, you talked about writing a book, 150 pages. And then you said we want to design it to be consumed. What's the right size of a book that people would consume? And because I know the average book that is read, what is it, 10%, 1%? Most people don't read a book.
It's about 10%. And Amazon can measure all these statistics because they know how much of Kindle, each Kindle book that you read.
Yeah.
And so they say it's about 10%. And so if all that we're going to get conveyed is 10% of a longer book, well, let's just shorten the book. And there's a balance there, right? So if a typical, kind of business book is 250 to 350 words, probably writing a 25 to 35 page book is not the right answer, because you're going to look like you're not very credible.
Yeah.
Right. We found that 100 to 150 pages is a really good sweet spot.
Okay.
That length of book can be read in a couple of hours and in one sitting. And that's really what we're going for, is something that can be read in one sitting, that, if somebody takes it with them on their next, plane flight, they can read it on the plane and be done at the end and make a decision. And that's what we're going for.
Love it.
And so, yeah.
So you just shared a really, really valuable piece here, maybe some of your secret sauce. About 150 pages that they must be able to read it in a couple of hours in one sitting. What do you say to people who think the thicker the book, the more credible and the more of an expert they are in someone's eye?
When you go to buy a book, do you care how many pages it is?
No.
You care about the promise that's made in the title of the book.
No.
I mean, you're buying the book because of what the title promises you is going to be inside. And that's the only thing. It's the only thing that matters. And so you can get away with a very short book. I do think there is a link between credibility, but there are some great books that are a really short length. And so there's a great book called U Squared that I think is 28 pages, and it's sold millions of copies. A really good book by Richard Koch, who wrote all the 80/20
Yeah.
books. He's got one called the Breakthrough Power of 16x, and it's basically the 80/20 of the 80/20 of all of his other books, and it's about 30 pages, I think, and it's fantastic. But those, you have to work really hard to create a great book that's that length. For most people, hitting that sweet spot of 100 to 150 pages gives you the opportunity to include stories, because those shorter books, you probably won't have stories in them. And it gives you an opportunity to get enough detail that you really convey your expertise.
Love it. Love it. So we talked about doing a book in 30 days. So what's that? What is that process like?
So, one of the things I discovered when I wrote my first book, so my first book actually wasn't my first book. I wrote 2 books before that, except they never got finished.
Oh,
And they didn't get finished because, like most first-time authors, I didn't have a system to follow. And I would get really excited about an idea. I would do kind of a rough outline, and then I would just start writing. And I'd get a couple of chapters in and think, oh, this is pretty good. And I'd come back the next day and I'd be lost, and I never made it very far. And what I discovered when I wrote the first book that got published, Unstoppable Referrals, was that I needed a really detailed structure to the book, and I needed a process for writing. And so I created this very detailed outline and structure for the book. And we have a process that we take our clients through now to create that, and get it to the point where when you're writing, all you have to do is kind of open up the book framework and answer the next question, and that's kind of in line. And there's some magic about just being able to show up and answer a question. The brain can't stand an unanswered question. And so if all you're doing as you're trying to write the book is look at the next question and answer it, and each answer is maybe just a few paragraphs, it now becomes very quick to write the book. So what I would find when I was writing that first book is I would get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning before the kids were up, because our kids were much younger and they were all still at home. And I needed like an hour a day before they would, be up and the day would start. And I would knock out a bunch of these questions that I had written in my outline. And in 30 days, an hour a day, I had that book written. That was
love
book
it.
number 1.
Uh-huh.
So book number 2 took 8 hours.
Start to finish?
Start to finish. Now, granted, I had become a much better writer and a much faster writer. Not everybody's going to do that. But following this process, even people who look at themselves and they say, I'm not a very good writer, when they follow the process and we create the structure, they can create their book in about 30 minutes a day over 30 days or so.
Wow. So you could actually, I could see that. Like if I have a bunch of questions that I have to answer, if I grab, like I know I use this quite a bit, like the voice to text kind of thing on my phone. If you put a question in front of me, I'll talk it out, and then I could get it to an editor to fix it up. I'll be done in no time. And that makes it very simple. That makes it very simple. But then I bet there's this other pieces that they need to have in the book that would make it that you guys do. So it's not just like answer 5 questions and you're done.
No, I mean, we end up with dozens and dozens of questions, actually. For every little, every few paragraphs of the book, there's another question that's prompting them for what they should put in. Because what we found is that if you go too far between one of those questions, we kind of use them as like mileposts along the way. If you go too far, the brain starts to get lost, and you start going down these rabbit holes, and then you end up with a book that's disorganized and hard to follow. And so, by really being strategic about how we create those questions up front, that's what speeds it up. And we want to do that again, tying it all back to that original framework. And so it's not that we just want any question in there. we want to make sure that it ties back to that original framework. So at the beginning of the book, the first few chapters, we're dealing with the big problem and the consequences of that problem. And then we're taking them through, 5 to 7 chapters that describe the unique mechanism for that business. And then at the end, what does the future look like? So it's all got to be tied to that framework.
For sure. Love it. Love it. And so let's say that we write the book, we edit it, the cover and everything is designed. How do we go about launching it? What are some best ways and best practices there?
Sure. So there's 2 approaches to launching it. And the first is the go big or go home approach. And this is what most people think that they need to do. And the truth of the matter is, very few books are going to actually make a bestseller list. Um, Virtually any book can be an Amazon bestseller. In fact, we've got a really easy strategy for that. But to get to the New York Times and Wall Street Journal and USA Today lists, very few books are actually going to make it there. Most don't have the market for that. And most business owners who write a book don't need that. They just need to be famous in their community, famous in their little part of the market. So the go big or go home strategy, what that ends up doing is it ends up costing you a lot of money and getting you to do a lot of things that don't produce a lot of value.
Okay.
So we've developed something, a little bit of a different approach. We call it the inverted viral launch. And
Inverted
the inverted viral launch.
viral
So
launch. Okay.
what we want is we want the book to go viral really quickly within the community that is closest to you. And that's with people who've already expressed an interest in working with you in the last 2 years. That's the people who are in your network, who are your biggest fans. That's with your existing customer base, because they're going to look at the fact that you wrote a book and it's going to validate for them why they're working with you. Yeah, I really am. I'm working with Mustafa and he just wrote a book. He really is the #1 expert on fixing your follow-up. It's gonna instill that feeling in them, like they've already made a good decision and they're going to want to share it. And by doing that, what we see is that we get almost instant ROI with our clients. Sometimes before we're even finished working with them, they've paid for what it costs to produce the book, because we're not trying to go get it to 1 million strangers. We're trying to go get it to the 100 or 200 or 500 people that are closest to buying.
100%. Yeah, I think there was that book, the famous article about 1,000 true fans, saying you don't need a ton of people to make a big impact. Like a couple of 100 people, if they share it with their network, now you have all of a sudden 1,000 people, and boom, like within just a few days, a few weeks, you would make a big impact out there and get all sorts of titles like bestseller, this and that in Amazon. And Steve, do people even care if it's a bestseller or not? Like when it comes to attracting clients?
The readers don't care. Your future clients don't care. We work with a lot of authors who think that that's really important, and it's largely an ego play, for the author, and there's nothing wrong with that. The good news is it's very easy to become an Amazon bestseller, and there's companies out there that want to charge lots and lots of money to get you there. We teach our clients how to do it in about 30 minutes. I mean, it's just an easy thing to do.
On Amazon?
Yeah, on Amazon.
Okay, fantastic. So we talked about how people that read your book are more eager and qualified and ready to buy. What would be the same mechanism so let's say that I've given the book to you and you've given it to a few friends. How do those people come back to me and become customers? What does that process look like?
So a couple of ways that can happen. One way is for me to do all the work of getting the book to those people, right? So if you're going to share the book with people that I say, hey, Mustafa, let me make this really easy for you. I've got a whole team here who will send the books out. Just if you'll give me the addresses, we'll stick them in the mail for you. And now I know who they're going to. And I've also taken all the work off of you. And most clients will be like, oh, this is great. I get all the credit and none of the work.
Yeah.
And so then and then you're able to follow up. And you want to do that respectfully and and not not hound people. But there's an easy way to do that. The other way to guarantee that you're going to get response is to put things in the book that lead them back to you. And so, oftentimes when you're writing a book, there are other resources that would be really valuable for the reader, but that just don't fit in the book very well. So, one example that we did for one of our clients was this spreadsheet that was like a calculator that helped them figure out. It was a book on finances, and it helped them figure out and calculate, some of their finances. And obviously, we couldn't put that into the book very easily, but really, really valuable for the reader to go through that exercise. And so we made that available on a website. They go to the website, they opt in to get it, and now who's reading your book. And so there are usually opportunities to put one or more of those sorts of really great resources into the book to generate leads. And then we also put throughout the book, and for sure at the end of the book, a listing of the other ways that you can help. And a listing of the ways that you work with people. If you've got different programs, what are the different programs and how can people find out about them? And you've got the chance then to really describe those in a lot of detail.
Love it. Steve, is it better to print a book or does Amazon Kindle work? I guess you get the question asked all the time.
I get that question a lot. I'm a big believer in physical books. You can see the bookshelf behind me. Some of those are books that I've written, and then on this side are books we've done for clients. And so imagine that, you've been able to send a physical book to someone, and now they're going to put it on a bookshelf or they'll put it on the corner of their desk, and you've just purchased some real estate, or maybe if they've purchased your book, they've purchased it for you. They've purchased some physical real estate in their world. And that's got tremendous value. So about 2 years after my first book was released, I got a sales call booked from a guy in the UK. And he gets on the call on Zoom and he said, "I have your book. I've never read it. I'm not going to read it." And I'm like, this is the strangest call ever. Who starts a call like that with somebody who's written a book, right? And he said, "A buddy of mine gave me your book, like a couple of years ago, and that's a whole advantage to having a book in and of itself, is that here's someone that I don't know who got a copy of my book, liked the ideas in it, shared them with someone else, and now I'm on a sales call with him." But setting that aside for a second, he had a copy of this book. He put it on his nightstand when he got it. He's telling me all of this. He said, "I've had it on my nightstand for 2 years. I look at it every night and I look at it every morning when I get up. And I haven't read it yet, but I keep reading the cover and I need what it says on the cover. And it has your name on it, had your website, you're my guy." It's the easiest sales call ever.
So I'm guessing the cover is important, what it says on it. And they have to
title. Yeah, title is hugely important.
Title, again, if you're watching or listening, title is hugely important. Hugely. Yeah, I mean that's. Well, we also don't judge a book by its cover, but I guess it's the cover that gets you in.
Oh, we judge books by the cover and the title all day long.
All day long, absolutely, absolutely. Love it. And what I like about a physical book is that you have a physical presence on their desk. I probably have. I have a bunch of books around, but then they come across the book, and if it's nice, like you said, they could read it maybe 2 years later, and one day they'd be like, maybe I should read this book, or maybe, Steve, I've bought books, or I've had books that I haven't read it, but later on I realized that I have a problem, and then I realized that I have a book on that problem, and I opened the book and I read it. So maybe they're not going to read it right now, but later they're going to come to it. But like your perfect story here, they just read the book. They're like, I need to talk to Steve. This guy's going to fix my problem. And
exactly. And that's, to me, that's the magic of this as a tool. And that's one of the things that we've just discovered over the last 8 years since I published my first book, and we see it with our clients as well. Books are like planting seeds. And, for most business owners, they're probably doing a lot of the selling themselves. and that takes a lot of time. I used to do a ton of networking, and I don't do any anymore, but I used to do a ton of networking. And I'd spend 8 or 10 hours a week away from my family, away from my business, just trying to meet people. And that's hard manual labor. I was I was taking all of my great ideas and my best thinking, and I was putting it in the most expensive packaging that we could ever come up with, and that was me, right? And instead of me going out and trying to sell the ideas, you package the ideas like this, and you send these out, and these now are little seeds of ideas that you plant, and you do it very inexpensively. So a book like this, to print it, $2-3 a copy, pretty cheap.
Do you have a
And
minimum quantity for that?
one,
$2-3 for one.
yeah.
Holy moly. That
And
is
so
like the nicest business card you could get for $2 or $3.
yeah. And so, one of the things we really challenge our clients to do is, how many of these things can you get out in the world and how quickly? Because as you get them out there and you plant all these seeds, some of them are going to come back to you right away. And kind of like that story I shared about the guy on the nightstand, that guy came back 2 years later. And I had
Yeah.
no idea that he had even gotten the book.
Interesting. So speaking of how many can you get out, we talked about getting 5 to 15 qualified high ticket prospects with zero ad spend. I mean, you shared a little bit about sitting down with your friend and going through the contacts. What is the strategy there to get 5 to 15 prospects a week with
So
zero ad spend?
for most of our clients, if they have that kind of referral conversation that we went through with their clients and with the people in their network, do a couple of those conversations a week, they're going to get to that level of lead flow pretty quickly, usually within about 60 days. And then if you want to make sure that that happens, the thing that we would encourage you to do on top of that is build a list of the 100 prospects that you would love to do business with. And sometimes this is a challenge for people to do. But
yeah, I think Russell Brunson calls that the Dream 100 list.
The Dream 100, yeah. Chet Holmes has written about it. A lot of people have they talk about this. But then send out a book a day. If you send one book a day over the course of a year, you just every working day, that's 210 books that are out. Most businesses don't need that many leads.
They can't even handle that many leads.
No, as you know, because they can't follow up with them. But when you turn it into a habit like that, and you've got a few easy ways, you've got a great easy referral conversation that you can have a couple times a week, and now you've got 5, or if you really want to get crazy, send 2 books out a day, and you've got 10 new prospects that you're reaching out to. Pretty soon all of that starts to come back, usually within 30, 60, 90 days. You begin to see that lead flow coming back in, and if you keep up with that, it's just unstoppable.
Love it. Let's talk about your gift, and then we're going to do a Mustafa exposed and coached session here. Please tell us about your gift here and what people are going to get.
Yeah, so we're giving everybody a copy of my new book, The $1 Million Book, which talks about a lot of the stuff we've gone through here, but in a lot more detail. So it's going to take you through what to put in your book. It's going to take you through how to market your book and kind of the 3 most important funnels that you want to think about as you put your book out there, and really kind of give you the blueprint for everything that we've talked about today. So folks can go and grab that at the link that's on the screen there and in the chat, and they can download it right away.
Love it. So the book is called The $1 Million Book by my friend Steve Gorton. The link is in the show descriptions of the show, the link of the show on social media. Any platform would have the link. Download the book today. How many pages do you have in that book?
That's a great question. I should know off the top of my head.
But is that like a one sitting, like a couple hours of reading?
Oh yeah, 125 pages.
All right, perfect. And get all the secret sauce and everything that he has got going, because obviously he knows what he's doing. How many books have you guys published so far?
We are just over 100 in the last year.
Oh, nice. So you obviously know what you're talking about.
We've done a couple of books at this point.
So let's do a Mustafa exposed and coached. Are you open to that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here is something that's running in the back of my head, and that is, I don't know how often you hear this. Sometimes I say to myself, if I write a book, nobody's going to read it because there's all those big ass, bestsellers and names out there, and who cares about my book?
So there are 4 levels of engagement with a book. All of them are good. We've talked about some of them. So the first and most basic level is somebody doesn't even get a copy of your book, but they just see that you've written a book and that you're an author. And you've now elevated in their
your
minds.
status there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that might be all that a prospect needs to go, yep, that's my guy. The second level is they see that you have a book and they get a copy of it. And kind of like the guy who had it on the nightstand, never read it. Okay, great. We've already shown that that turns into dollars in your bank account. Okay, so they don't have to read the book. The third level is that they get your book and they read it, and that's really good, right? The fourth level is they get your book, they read it, they book a conversation with you, and on that conversation, they spend the whole time selling you on which parts of your system are perfect for them. And I have that happen several times a week. All 4 of those levels are good. I'll take all 4 of them. You don't have to have them read the book.
Love it. You sold me. As soon as you started talking with the first level, I started coming up with my own solutions, saying that people go, okay, good. The fact that you have a book, like most of my competition, though, probably don't even have a book.
No.
And if there are 2 guys where everything is equal, one has written a book, the other person doesn't have a book. Which one are you more likely to lean towards and have a conversation with?
You're gonna go with the guy who wrote the book or the gal who wrote the book. So, and I'll tell you, I talk with 10 to 15 business owners a week who want to write a book. Here's the thing that I hear from them. Most all of them have had it on their bucket list, and they'll use that term. They'll say it's been on my bucket list for 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. The record so far is 27 years. Guy told me I've been thinking about doing this for 27 years. And wow. I'm like, okay, wow, let's get it done. But there are an awful lot of business owners out there who aspire to write a book and never will, even with all the millions of books that are being published now, right? More books being published now than at any point in history. And even with all of those, there are going to be far more people who never write a book than people who write a book. Okay. But those business owners that you're selling to, that, that where you go and write a book now, because they, in the back of their mind, they've kind of thought about it, they aspire to it. Now they're looking up to you. You're the leader.
Interesting. Very interesting. Let's talk about some examples of people that you have worked with and some of the success stories and what they experienced as a result of working with you.
Sure.
Over 100 people. What is the transformation? What are the stories that you see every day?
Sure. So one of our clients, his name's John, and he's in financial services. And we've actually written 3 books with him now. And I mean, he's got so many success stories because he uses our referral process and sends some books out, does a lot of the things that we've talked about here. And he'll have people come in who got the book. And we helped him write his first book 10 years ago now. And he'll have people come in with that first book who maybe got it 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, and they weren't ready yet. But they come in and they've got a dog-eared copy that's old. It's got coffee stains on it. They've highlighted stuff. They've got sticky notes, and they come in and they know exactly what they want to buy. Okay. And for somebody who's selling, in his case, life insurance and investments and annuities and things like that, he doesn't have to prove to them that he knows what he's talking about or an expert. They're coming in and saying, I really hope that you can help me. That's
Love it.
that's a game changing conversation if you're in his business as a financial advisor. He uses the books as kind of an initial way to get people's interest, and then invites people who get his book to come to in-person seminars that they put on. And they'll put over 100 people in a seminar. And this is not the kind of seminar that most financial advisors do, where they spend a lot of money buying a big steak dinner and all this other stuff. People are coming because they want to hear from the author of the book. So that's one success story on one end. On the other end of things, we worked with a lady named Mary, and she was just starting a consulting business. She's an educational consultant and works with parents who homeschool their kids, helps them design custom programs. And she didn't even really have a business at this stage. She didn't have clients, and she was trying to launch this new business. But she was really great at what she did. And so we took all of her philosophies and helped her craft those and kind of organize them into the structure that we talked about. And she started sharing that book, and she got major media coverage within 2 months. And that just really fueled the growth of her business. And so she's gone from no business to having a thriving consulting business in just about 6 months.
Love it. And once you have a book, getting on podcasts and getting some media exposure and whatnot becomes a lot easier.
Oh, absolutely.
And the author of blah, blah book, the expert in this field. Would you like to have me as a guest? It's a lot. I think the yeses on that question would increase significantly once you have a book.
Absolutely, they do. Yeah. I mean,
on the show, you could probably give away a bunch of books.
Yeah, you give away a bunch of books, you get a lot of leads. And so it's great, And on our podcast, we only have people on who are authors or who are referred in. And so if you're not an author, unless you're referred, you're not getting on the show, because we get so many inbound
requests,
inquiries. We have to have a filter. And so those are the two filters.
Fantastic. You have dropped a lot of value and a lot of amazing nuggets that people could use right away. Here's a question with the Simple Marketing Show. Give us a simple marketing strategy that people could do, something that we could do in 10, 15 minutes and potentially see some results.
So I'll tell you probably the simplest thing that you could do is look at who has been in your pipeline over the last 90 days or 180 days and send them an email. And this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the book, but you can do it in the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'm stealing a little bit out of your book and follow up, but there's probably some money hiding in that list of people, and most people will ignore them. So that's the easiest thing to do in 10 or 15 minutes. If you want to spend a little bit more time than that, then I would get together your best ideas and put them into a book, or if you can't get a book done, put them into some kind of a form that you can easily share. Let your ideas go do the selling for you.
Love it. Can I share a third idea backing on what you just said?
Yeah. So, I'd actually combine the two.
Yes.
So if you've put your best ideas together into something, I mean, I did this when I first started this business 13 years ago, and nobody knew me. I was going into a new industry, and I wrote down the things that I had done in my first business that had made us successful in marketing, because I was going to go try and sell those ideas to people. And I started sending them out to people in my network. And that got us enough clients to get started. And so taking those great ideas and emailing to the people that have been in your pipeline, it will almost always shake something loose.
Absolutely. And if you got a book, you could just email a PDF copy and say, hey, I just wrote this book. Hey, you can download it. Let me know what you think. Right. Absolutely. And then you have another reason to follow up and say, hey, did you like it? What do you think?
Well, and if you've got a physical book, and this is a secret, like, we'll FedEx these or send them priority mail. And then getting someone on a phone call after you've sent them a priority package with a book in it, you get them on the phone is just a piece of cake. So
absolutely. You do a follow-up call like what we do. Say, hey, would you like to have a chat about that? How much time would you give them? Well, given it's a 2-hour thing, Would you follow up? Like, how many days would you give it before you follow up?
So if we're mailing it, we'll the way we time all these follow-ups out is 7 days. And the
7
reason for
days
7
after.
days, yeah, the reason is we don't have to worry about it. Does it fall on a weekend? So if we mail it on a Monday, the follow-up calls happen on a Monday.
Okay.
And that's enough time for it to be delivered. And I don't care if they read it or not, because when we have that conversation, usually it's just, hey, I sent you a copy of the book. I sent you a package. Did you get it? And most time they'll say yes. Oh, great. Hey, have you had a chance to read the book? Most time they're going to say no. That's okay. Hey, would you like me to give you a 15-minute executive overview from the author? Or if I'm having somebody on my team do that, hey, would you like me to schedule you 15 minutes with the author? He'll do a great little executive overview and save you the time of reading the book.
Amazing. Like, you have another great reason to follow up. Say, hey, what do you think? Can we have a chat? Yada, yada, yada. Love it. Can I ask you a few personal questions before we wrap up?
Do it. Yeah, let's do
All
it.
right. What's a new thing you have tried recently? Big or small?
A new thing I have tried recently.
As small as a cup of coffee, as big as going to the moon.
Well, as small as a cup of coffee, a good friend of mine turned me on to a great new Ethiopian single source coffee at my favorite coffee shop. But that's pretty small. In terms of a big new thing that I've tried here lately, man, that's a great question. I'm trying to think. What have I been doing?
A book, a technology, a software.
Yeah, I'll tell you what we've been experimenting a lot with is ChatGPT.
Yeah, that was coming up next.
Yeah, and here's what I'll tell you about that. It's not going to replace humans writing books, because that's the question I get all the time.
Yeah.
It will easily get 10x or 100x better, but here's the thing that makes your book, whoever's listening to this, your book really great. You have unique insights that a computer can never replicate based on your experience, and the meaning that you bring to those experiences, professional and personal. And that will never be replaced by a computer.
Yeah.
But ChatGPT is super cool. I was playing with it on a Zoom call with a colleague about 2 hours ago, and we asked it a question. I was amazed it had an answer for us. So.
Fantastic. Yeah, I played around with ChatGPT as well. Got it. I actually did get it to write a chapter for me, but it wasn't me.
Yeah.
I want some. This is what I learned from Naval Ravikant. You know Naval?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he said, you want something that is and you touched on it as well. You want something that is so uniquely you that nobody can replicate. Right. And then there's already code and software out there that picks on whether this content is AI or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want people to pick up a book and say, oh, this is so boring. Like, this is obvious. Is this Mustafa? Is this ChatGPT? I don't want that question. I want it to be so uniquely me that people would just, relate to and get a feel for who I am and what I do, basically.
Right. And, the way that the systems are working, they're just predicting, you give it 3 words or 300 words, and it's just predicting what words should come next. And sometimes it's right and sometimes it's not. But again, it's just putting words down. It doesn't understand the meaning.
Yeah.
And it can't make meaning out of it. And part of what makes a really great business book that's going to help someone and is going to bring leads to your business is when you can translate something and put meaning to some ideas for a particular type of potential client.
Absolutely. Steve, give me 2 of your favorite books, please.
My 2 favorite, the Bible, I read every day, and the other is Think and Grow Rich, and I read that probably twice a year.
Grow Rich. Love it. What's one advice that made a big impact on business or life for you?
Man, there's a lot. But probably the biggest impact is actually a quote from President Calvin Coolidge, and it's around the idea of persistence. And he says that persistence is kind of the idea of the quote is persistence is really the only thing that you can rely on, that talent won't get you there, that skill, knowledge, education, qualifications, none of that will really get you there, because you can look at examples of really smart people who never made it, or really talented people that never made it, and the people that make it are the ones that persist. And so that's not the exact quote, but that's the idea. And I think that, to me, that's the only thing that guarantees that you win.
100%. Something recently we were talking and discussing about, I think you were in the discussion too, is passing the persistent test with this show that we've done about 120 some episodes over 2 or 3 years, and so something I'm happy about.
Yeah,
I enjoy this.
That's a huge milestone. I mean, I think most podcasts die out around 6 episodes.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
It's a lot of work to do this.
And you've done 180 or 90 of them or so?
So we have done, at this stage, actually that number is a little bit old. We've done over 200 interviews and over 300 episodes altogether. Some of those episodes are just me by myself. But
solo episodes, I guess.
Yeah, solo episodes. And so we've been at it for 5 years now, every week. And I committed, when I started the podcast, I committed to doing it for at least a decade, just to see what would happen.
Yeah. It's funny. I was looking into Joe Rogan's podcast. He started back in 2009 and he was around 2015. So 7-8 years later that he actually made it big. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us want to become Joe Rogan within 90 days.
Right. Yeah. Good luck.
We forget it, or don't think about that persistency or the consistency type of test that is there and the time that it takes.
Exactly. True. Yeah, that's the key.
Absolutely. Steve, if you had a Facebook or a Google ad where everyone around the globe with access to internet could see your ad, what would your message be for people of Earth?
That's funny. We do have a bunch of those, actually.
You do?
So, oh yeah, we got Facebook ads running all the time.
This would be a personal message.
Oh, a personal message.
Yeah, you have a message for people. What would it be?
I'm in a stage of life right now where I'm putting a lot of focus on gratitude and practicing gratitude. I think that is that's a tremendous antidote to fear. You can't be grateful and in fear at the same time. And so my message would be to practice gratitude daily.
Love it. Steve, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and some of your secret sauce, even though I didn't get permission to ask for it, but I tried to dig as much as possible. Is there anything that you'd like to share that you wanted to talk about, but we didn't get a chance?
Hey, we covered it all. I just love for as many people as possible to go to get a copy of the book, go put it to good use. Get your book out there in the world. If we can help you do that, great. But it'll be a game changer for your business. It was a game changer for ours. It's a game changer for every one of our clients. And so that's why I put our secret sauce into the book. I want to get it out to as many people as I can.
Love it. Gang, it is a game changer. Do reach out to Steve and his team. Download his book, the $1 Million Book, and go through his strategy to get the book. I mean, it's a no brainer to have a book. And thank you for joining us. Thank you, Steve, again. If you have any questions for me or Steve, put it in a comment below, or do reach out to Steve on LinkedIn or Facebook or other places. He is most likely tagged on most social channels that we're going live on. And get some help. A $2 or $3 business card is very effective. Think about it. And this is probably the most useful business card that you would ever print, because most business cards do nothing for you, but this one is most likely to get something. And again, if you have questions, put them in a comment. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the show, or share this episode. Grab the link, send it to someone that could benefit from writing a book, most likely an expert, a consultant, a business owner. that is looking to grow leads and get more people in their funnel, send it to them. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.